Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Kerrigan.
Whoa! Hello! Wow. I'm really looking forward to this show today. This is amazing. After a lot of technical kind of things that went on before the show began. Now we're on and up and running. Today is a very special day because we have a very dear friend of mine on the show. She's from England, and it's absolutely amazing because we will have this fantastic discussion about the goddess and the archetypical triple goddess, and it will be very interesting for all of us. But before we go there, I really want to tell you about the music that just put in the beginning of the show. It's music that it's actually my music. So we never did this before, but we thought that it would be a very interesting thing to put a music, moments before the show began. And it would be good because, at that point you can actually advertise or promote artists, pagan artists, and we can just, promote their music, which would be a very nice thing. We don't really play music in the show. We do play videos, but we don't really play music. So that would be a nice way of promoting young artists and pagan artists. So that's, pagan musicians. That's one of the ideas. So if you are a musician, if you are a pagan musician, just emailed us and tell us what you do and what is the music that you do, so that we can put it on the air before the show begins, so that people can know you a little bit more. Now, this is what you're listening right now. It's called Tango of the She. It's called Tengol Shi La Musamila, and it's from my album, Chants of Old. It's the second edition. I just put it on a new track, a brand new track from the original, and it's a brand new music. So it's an idea. Just if you happen to have that, it's really an idea. Chants of Old, second edition, and we will do this. So we will kind of talk about the music and about the artist a little bit, so and where you can find the CD. In my case, it's available on lojos.biz. So if you wanted to go there and buy it, if you like the music, so that's the way to do it. So that's it. Basically, it's a very nice idea, I think. Now, going forward, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about what we do here on Witchtalk and how you can contact us. There is a series of websites that I wanted to talk to you about. Well, not a series, but just two. One is our Ustream Facebook Witchtalk show page, and you can actually go in Ustream Live and you can watch our show from there. It's very convenient if you don't want to go out of Facebook. So you can send us a message in here if you wanted to, or post something in here, a question or anything. And this is basically the site where you can actually contact us on Witchtalk. We do have also another one. Let me just see here if I can. Witchtalkshow.com, and that's another one that it's very interesting because it's our page, our official web page for a Witchtalk show. It's very, very good. And here you will have all kinds of stuff. You will have the iTunes link, you will have the Ustream channel, and you have also you can comment on the episode if you wanted to. So it's a very handy thing also. And that's basically it, I think. Yes, that's basically it. So now what we're going to go for is to tell you how you can contact us on Witchtalk. On email and all of those things. Here we go. So, you want to know how to keep in touch with everything Witchtalk? Go to www.witchtalkshow.com and follow all the latest news. Listen directly to the show and enjoy it. If you're on the move, take Witchtalk with you by subscribing to our Witchtalk podcast on iTunes or by following us on Buzzsprout Witchtalk site by going to witchtalkbuzzsprout.com. Don't forget to join us on Ustream Crowd. Go to www.ustream.tv/channel/witchtalk-show. Miss the show? Don't worry. Every show will be recorded and available for you to watch or listen both in Ustream and Buzzsprout. Witchtalk will air every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or approximately 9 p.m. in most Europe. Now, live in video, watch us on Ustream. Follow us on Twitter at Carrigan, Kharagan, with an H after the K, or send us an email at witchtalkshow@gmail.com. Now, back to the show. Well, back to the show it is. Here we are again, and today we have a very special guest, and I'm very excited about the show today. And we do have, so don't forget, if you're an artist, and if you're a Pagan artist, we can actually promote you a little bit on the beginning of the show. It will be 5 minutes or 10 minutes before the show, so we can play a song or two out of your album. You have to send us an email to tell us what song you wanted us to play, and and possibly to send us the CD so that we can play it. So that's basically it. Now we're going for witch reads, and Indigo Estrella, it's actually bringing us a very interesting book today. Not that the other days the books were not interesting, but this one is very, very, very interesting. So here we go. Witches Talk, about which books witches read. With Indigo Estrella. Witch Reads. Hi, Indigo.
Hi, Kerrigan.
How are you?
I'm great. I have my computer back. I'm so excited.
Oh my, oh my, oh my. And you have your
that was so
internet.
hard last week. Yes, it was so hard last week. I'm glad that I have the chat back. Able to listen to the show. I'm so excited for the show today. It's
really, really good. It's really, really good. Me too. I'm very, very excited about this. Now, tell us a little bit about this new book that you bring on Witch Reads, because I know that it's a special book. This reminds me of that special book. I mean, it's a book, but it's very interesting. It's a very interesting thing. Go ahead.
It's a numbered and signed copy, so that's what makes it a little bit more special in my collection. Is the publisher, Scarlet Imprint, they were so generous in sending me a numbered signed copy of this book. It's called Devoted, and I'll post a link to the chat room so people can see the actual website. It's very beautiful. The cover is very plain. It's
well, I'm showing the cover right now. It's it's very interesting.
For those who are listening to it and don't have the ability to actually see it, it's a yellow cover. It's kind of like a cloth, and it's just got a big black chalice on it. But it's really interesting because if you look at the negative face, the negative face, you see two faces about to kiss.
Yes.
It's very interesting. So it's kind of one of those. It plays with your perception a bit. And I think that's a good tone for the book, because this is it's an anthology, but it's not an anthology the way that you'd probably expect it to be. Most anthologies that I've read, if not all, tend to be more instructional. Of course, there's always personal anecdotes, but this book is purely personal accounts of their experiences and their relationship with their deity. And it's really incredible, actually, to see the depths that these devotees go to. I mean, there's one, Peter Gray. He actually had, I would call it like a surgery, where he actually cut himself so deep for Babylon. It's amazing.
What do you mean he cut himself so deep for Babylon?
Well, according to the book, from what I can tell, he cut a very large piece of his skin out, and there's a scar now left still, and and he's proud of it, because that's his sign that he's devoted to the goddess Babylon, not the culture.
We hope to have him actually on the show, right?
Yes, it's very amazing, and it's incredible. Yes. I mean, we also have let's see, Maud Morgan. He's been on the show before. Yes. Also, there's an amazing story. Not really story, because it's true, but an amazing account from Mark Allen Smith about how he found his path to Hecate.
Yes.
And it's incredible how he describes she came to him in physical form.
Yeah, Love in the Dark, it's called.
Yeah.
Love in the Darkness. Love in the Darkness, yes. For Mark Allen Smith. Mark Smith is just amazing. He's very, very...
He is. He's fantastic.
Substantial.
And honestly, just from reading these stories, and it's a variety of deities. It's not necessarily dark goddesses or, the deeper, like Hecate or Lilith and Tiamat and Babylon. They're all included in the book, but there's also devotees of Loki and Dionysus, the Lua. It's very, very diverse.
It's very beautiful. The book is absolutely amazing, and the texts are and the book itself. I mean, the book itself, it's beautiful. The whole book, it's striking. Absolutely beautiful. It's a hardcover, and it's numbered. And then I mean, it's the design of the book is very beautiful. These things are, we should talk about these things, because these things are important. People just disregard.
I've had some books sent to me that are very poor quality in publishing, and especially if it's a very good book and content, it takes away something when the publishing quality of the material itself is just so poor. It's not going to last through many years of good use.
Well, we can't really say the design of this book, who it was, because I can't yet read Greek. And it says designed by, and then there is this whole thing about, it's Greek letters. I would love to read this, but I can't read it. But you know, it's okay.
Yeah. But the book itself, the accounts, it's amazing because it ranges from the intellectually thought-provoking and the very abstract. The article, not the article, but the account on Tiamat is very abstract. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, honestly. But all of them are awe-inspiring. And sometimes it's almost like reading a love letter, especially in the case of Ruby Sarah's account of how she found Dionysus and how he comes to her at night to caress her lips and to drink the wine and to go deeper into the mystery. It's so, it's incredible, really, just to see how far these devotees will go. But the thing to remember is they are all feeling like they are the ones that they're not losing anything. They're willingly sacrificing themselves, their bodies, their souls to these deities. And in return, they have a relationship that goes beyond this physical realm and goes and transcends all. And it's so, beautiful to see that. And it's something that I haven't seen in any other books, really. I mean, I know from, talking to authors, or, you can see how people's devotion to a deity can be deep. But when these personal accounts, they're really opening up their souls and bearing their souls in these essays, because this is one of the most personal sides and personal aspects that you can share. So I found it, to be really incredible.
It's beautiful. It really is beautiful. And the book, I really like, I don't know about you, but I really loved the Goetic Devotions by Jake Stratton Kent. You know that?
Oh, that was fantastic.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing. I just love it.
Yeah.
I really do.
And I really, really liked The Mysteries by Stephen Grasso. And what's really funny is there's an article called Blood Pact by Charlotte Rogers, and in it she talks about the use of menstrual blood in ritual, and for using as an offering to spirits and deities, which is very interesting because I was in a discussion on Sorita D Este's Facebook page about that very recently. But it's very, very interesting. It's good to kind of get a different perspective from a variety of different practitioners from, that have devotion to a variety of different deities from around the world, and to really get insights into where they gauge themselves ethically and where they're going to, the depths that they're taking to show deity that they're devoted to them. So often I think we get caught up in saying that, let's say, for example, Athena is my patron goddess. Well, what does that mean? How devoted have you become? These people, they've bled for their love. They've sacrificed so much for their love. I mean, there's one in here where she talks about through her work with, I believe it was Lilith. There were many floods in her house, about 3 floods in a very short space of time. The washing machine would explode, the bathroom and kitchen sink would explode, and it came to a point where she finally destroyed everything having to do with Lilith, because she thought if she destroyed it, then it would just stop. But she realized that it's not something that she can just destroy on physical. Their souls were already entwined. They already had that relationship. They already formed that connection. You can't just get rid of a goddess like that.
Of course not. Yes. Yeah. Well, let me just tell you that we're looking at, for those of you who are just listening, we're looking at the website of Scarlet Imprint, which is an independent publisher of talismanic, esoteric, and occult works. And this is the page where we can see Devoted, and it's absolutely amazing. It's a beautiful, beautiful webpage with this book in it. And you can see here a little bit more about the authors that are contributing to this particular anthology. And Devoted provides in-depth essays on workings with Babylon, Ishtar, Hecate, Lilith, Loki, Tiamat, Dionysius, and many, many more. And then you have all the practitioners and voices that actually gave, and established practitioners that actually gave voice to these articles and these essays. They're absolutely amazing. It's an 814 copies numbered edition. It's absolutely beautiful. You can see here on the top how the book is. It's absolutely beautiful. 173 pages bound in saffron book cloth, black chalice stamped and finished with night black and papers. It's absolutely beautiful and amazing. Again, the website for this editor, it's www.scarletimprint.com, and that's SCARLETIMPRINT.com. And they have so many other books that I kind of like. I go like, I want this one. It's so amazing. They really have a lot of books. The books are absolutely beautiful in their own, in their own, and the themes and the everything. I mean, it's just amazing. We have the Red Goddess by Peter Gray. Hopefully, he will be on Witchtalk also, and the Crossed Keys also. Michael Tincinelli. And we will kind of see if they will come on Witchtalk, and it's absolutely amazing. All of the books are beautiful as a craft, item, but also as the themes of the books are absolutely amazing and beautiful.
And just to throw that out there, Crossed Keys by Michael Ciccatelli. We'll actually have him on the show next week to talk about that book.
Yes.
All the books are very well published.
Which is this one, Crossed Keys. So we're talking about this book right here. It's beautiful. It's not a big book, right? It's not a big book, but it's small. Yeah, it's small book, but it's beautiful. Very well made, and very well. And the contents of the book I'm not going to talk about because we're going to kind of like.
I had to leave something for a little surprise next week.
Yes. Let's just say that it's it says here on the website that it's a chimeric binding of both the Black Dragon and the Echiridion of the Pope Leo III in a fresh translation by the Grimoire magician Michael. I have a lot.
I think it's Ciccatelli.
Ciccatelli. Michael Ciccatelli. Okay, and it's absolutely amazing. The quality of the book is very nice, and the content is even better. So it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So how many cauldrons do we have on this amazing book, Devoted, by Scarlet Imprint?
I would say it's going to be about 4.5 cauldrons.
Ooh.
It's very, very good.
Amazing.
It's I love anthologies that have so much thought put into them like this. Especially, it takes a lot of courage to be able to put something so intimate.
You're absolutely true. Yes.
For public to read, and
yes.
I don't know. I only know maybe 1 or 2 of these people in the book. Everyone else, I have no idea who they are, but just their stories. It's so touching,
Yes.
And
yes.
Now, if I ever meet any of these authors, I'm always going to have their story of their devotion in my mind, which is amazing because that's something that, like I said, it's such an innermost part of yourself.
Absolutely.
To be, putting that out there, and you can say you're a devotee of Ishtar, but only when you share that depth of your devotion.
Yes.
it's incredible. I really like it.
So 4.5 cauldrons, is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, 4.5
so it's
cauldrons.
almost 5. So why is it not 5 then? I'm wondering.
Well, there were a few articles that I didn't really. It's just my own personal, like, for example, the Tiamat.
Yes.
I'm still wrapping my head around it. I can't. I can't give it the full 5 because I'm still trying to.
It's a personal.
All my reviews.
Yes.
Yeah, all of my reviews are personal things, though.
No, I know, but it could be like a technical thing, or no, it's really kind of a personal thing. Okay.
Yes, I mean it's not. How do I explain it? It's very poetic, I would say. Mm-hmm. But it's poetic in a way that it reminds me almost of some Victorian era writing, where it's poetic but very, very deep and very full of just symbolism, to the point where I'm still trying to grasp it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So, Devoted by Scarlet Imprint, a review by Indigo Estrella, and I leave you with the website. It's www.scarletimprint.com, and that's SCARLETIMPRINT.com, and it's a whole new world. I
want to leave with another quote from this book, because I read it and I said, yes, this is it. This is the book and what devotion is in just a sentence. Now, It's from the account called Blood Pact, the essay called Blood Pact by Charlotte Rogers. Mm-hmm. She says, "Love raises and illuminates. Devotion to love means stripping away aspects of self that are conditioned to perceive a certain way. This is no gentle and easy thing."
Very good. Very good.
Very good.
It's very good, and we're going to talk about devotion with our guest today also, because there's a lot of things that she did and she does that it has all to do with devotion. So it's very interesting.
When I think of devoted magicians and practitioners, those who have devoted themselves to the gods, Sorita is definitely one of the first I think of.
Yes,
definitely.
Absolutely. Yes, that's true. All right, thank you so much, Indigo, for being here and to bring us this wonderful review. I will see you on the chat room, right?
Yes, I wouldn't miss it.
All right, thank you so much, and I will see you next week.
All right, sounds great. Thanks, Kerrigan.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
So that was Indigo Estrella with Devoted by Scarlet Imprint. A wonderful book. Good thing for Yule if you're thinking about Yule presents. So it would be a very, very good acquisition for you to bring to your loved ones. So here we are, and now I'm going to introduce our guests for today, and we'll see how this wonderful conversation will be unfolded. Here we go. Sorita D Este is an esoteric researcher, author, and priestess who manifests her knowledge and passion for the mysteries through her work. She is best known for her research and work related to the goddess Hecate, as well as for her ability to push at the boundaries of esoteric research and practice through her workshops, lectures, and writing. Born a Sagittarius with Aquarius rising, overlooked by the majestic Qabalah Mountain in Cape Town, South Africa, Sorita was raised with a mixed Italian, English, and South African culture heritage. Her early interest and love affair with the Romantic poets conjured up worlds of forgotten gods and heroes, and out-of-the-body experiences during her childhood led her to pathways of psychic dream and astral explorations in the years that followed. During her teens, she explored a variety of religions and spiritual traditions and developed an interest in the Marian tradition within the Catholic Church, and through that, in the resurgence of the divine feminine. In her late teens, this culminated in the chance meeting which leads her to initiation into the Alexandrian tradition of the craft in 1992. In late 1999, she met the occultist and Kabbalist David Rankine in the Atlantis bookshop in London, and a year later they formed a very productive and creative partnership. Together, Sorita and David founded the Starstone Network in London 2000, an Alexandrian lineage community consisting of several covens and other magical groups exploring the craft Qabalah, healing, and the art of divination. They additionally facilitated groups such as the Qabalah Study Group, Lapis Companions, the Lyceum of Stella Maris, and a number of public and private workshops, ceremonies, and courses together between 2000 and 2007. To date, Sorita and David have co-authored more than 17 books together, including Hekate Liminal Rites, Practical Qabalah Magick, the Guises of the Morrigan, the Cosmic Shekinah, and Visions of the Cailleach. Sorita is also the author of books such as Artemis, Virgin Goddess of the Sun and the Moon, and the editor of 5 occult anthologies, including Both Sides of Heaven, Hecate, Her Sacred Fires, and Priestesses and Pythonesses and Sibyls. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest today on Witchtalk, Sorita D Este. Denise Alvarado studied art formally. So, Sorita, hi, how are you?
Hi, Kerrigan. Lovely to be here.
How are you?
I'm absolutely enchanted to be speaking to you tonight.
I'm just amazed. I don't know why why don't we have a video of you? Okay, let me just, because we should have a video of you. And Kirkwood Community College of Iowa, but however, I put it in here. So tell me, what did you do since the last time we see you? Because since the last time we talked, because you have so many things going on your life and all of these projects and all of these things, and I just wanted to know everything about everything.
Wow, everything? Okay, well, I think last time we spoke on Witchtalk, David and I and our little boy were still living in and since then we have actually sold our house, packed up our stuff, and we have now moved back to England, and we're living in the crazy little town called Glastonbury in Somerset.
Amazing! I just love it. I have to go there because I really love Glastonbury, and it's one of the places that I really want to go in the future. Because it's so. How can you describe Glastonbury to us?
How can I describe?
Now that you are there, you know what I mean. Can you just, because this is we're talking about Avalon. We're talking about what Avalon would be and where it would be. I think that now we have a video of you. Yes, okay. We do. Hi. Yes, we do. So tell us a little bit about Glastonbury. What is the energy like? How is it?
Well, it's quite bonkers, just to use a very proper English word for it. It's quite a bonkers little town. But then we knew that before we moved down here, and I have been thinking since I came here the first time with somebody who was a very, very dear friend of mine in 1999. I had an experience on that visit that made me feel that I had to come and live here. And it took me 12 years, but I've done it. And we live right in the centre of town, like 2-3 minutes from the high street. And Glastonbury is a fantastic place. I mean, it kind of was a big Christian pilgrimage site in the medieval times. Had a huge abbey, the remains of which are still standing, and which is only destroyed because of King Henry VIII and his divorce issues with the Pope. It was said to be built on a much older kind of, some people say, Druid school site, who apparently took in some of the early Christian pilgrims. There's so many legends associated with Glastonbury. One of the most famous is probably that it's like the legendary burial place of King Arthur and his wife Guinevere. there is a grave marker still today in the remains of the Abbey grounds that says, you know, this is the reputed grave of King Arthur. But, you know, whether that's true or not, it doesn't really matter. There's so many other legends. For example, there's something called the Glastonbury thorn here, which is a type of hawthorn tree that actually flowers not only in May, but also around Christmas.
Oh.
And it's said that this tree grew from the staff of Joseph of Arimathea when he arrived in Glastonbury. He planted his staff in the ground as a sign that he was staying, and that this staff actually sprung up into a tree overnight. So this is a magical tree. And they have, you know, various kind of offshoots of this tree all over the town. The high street itself is like a mishmash of kind of every single New Age and pagan, magical and occult and religion you can imagine. I mean, everything from shops like the Cat and Cauldron and Magic Box and Lilith, which is all kind of, you know, witchy shops and gothy witchy shops, in the case of this, to shops like the Goddess in Green Man and the wonderful Speaking Tree book and Labyrinth books, which is probably my favourite shop and very dangerously close to home. And sounds like lots of really good occult books. To kind of, you know, Buddhist centres, yoga centres, weird combination of things, including, you know, people that wear wire pyramids on their heads while they meditate. There's everything here.
That's amazing.
I've been told by somebody that apparently there's a local saying that says if you come to Glastonbury and you can't find your religion here, or you can't find a religion that's suited to you here, then apparently there's somebody that will make it up for free.
That's very interesting.
So, I mean, there's everything. And there's everything here today.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that there's so many diversity in Glastonbury?
I think that, you know, it started out as a site for religious pilgrimage, obviously, and the story of Joseph Arimathea, the kind of earlier Druid stories, etc. You know, whether they're true or not, it doesn't really matter, because they all encompass some kind of pilgrimage. You know, it's the same as the King Arthur burial story, because, you know, according to legend, of course, he went to the mythical island of Avalon upon his death, so that's kind of like a pilgrimage, and that he will return again from there. You know, but of course the belief today is that that was a story made up by the monks in the abbey to try and raise money for repair work through kind of enticing pilgrims in medieval times. And, you know, so that was the story, it doesn't really matter, because the earliest Marian shrine outside of the Roman kind of Italy was actually in Glastonbury. So even that early Marian shrine, you know, shrine to Virgin Mary, which indicates that there was a very early link with like a feminine divinity here. You know, people wouldn't just randomly set it up. It was probably due to some local legends and things that kind of got incorporated and made it necessary to have that shrine here. You know, so I think it's just, there's something about the place. It's the well, Chalice Well, there's the Red Well, White Spring. There's the hill that is just absolutely magical. It's just got the remains of a Christian monument on it, St. Michael's Tower. But it's something that you see for miles when you kind of come in from whichever direction you come, and it's definitely like a beacon calling people in. You know, so I think it's that kind of mixture of Christian and pagan, and just anything goes here. And it's really interesting to kind of like observe all the mixtures and things, and people are very, very accepting. I mean, to the extent of kind of like, you know, quite crazy accepting sometimes. But there really is something for everybody here. And, you know, like I said, the high street is just amazing, because there literally probably is a shop for pretty much every religion going in one way or another. From a commercial perspective, there's that, and a lot of people don't look past the commercial side of it, but there's a lot more to the place. I mean, there's something incredibly magical about the Abbey grounds. You know, I go and do, you know, nearly daily walks down there, take my little boy and stuff like that in there, and it's definitely like, because it's one of the only places that obviously haven't got a lot of buildings and houses and things on it, so there's obviously a different energy about it than the rest of the town. But I mean, there's some amazing old buildings, like the pub that is the most popular with pagans and occultists that come to Glastonbury, the Georgian Pilgrim. It's a 15th century building. You know, so it is just, it's got so much history, and it's got so many legends. And, because so many people come here, of course, new stories are born all the time. So from that perspective, it's very much like a living legend in its own right, rather than just being, something out of history. And there's also legends kind of linking it to Gwynedd Neith, the Welsh god. Fairy Kingdom Gate is said to be at the base of the tour. So there's so much going on here that, I think it's just one of those places that no matter which way you go, you would never be able to take the kind of mythical, magical side of it out of the landscape, because it's just so inherent in it. It's just so much a part of it. So, and of course, my company is named after Avalon as well, Avalonia, and
I know.
Now,
tell me, how did people receive you in Avalonia? Well, not Avalon. So how did they received you in Glastonbury, and you and David? Because you just arrived, but I'm sure that you had a lot of friends that lived in there.
We knew a lot of people before we came here, and we know the town really, really well as well. In fact, a couple of locals have noticed that I actually know the town better than they do. So, because we've both spent so much time here over the years. We've done workshops here, we've laid rituals here, we've visited friends, we've just socialised and visited the town over the years so many times that literally it became, like a second place from home. And so when we decided that we wanted to move back to England, we really didn't want to move with a child back into London, which is, obviously I'm not originally from the UK, I grew up in Africa, and I spent 12, 13 years in London, and then, 3-4 years now in 4 years in Wales. So obviously London to a certain extent is like home for me, because that's where I spent all my grown-up years, essentially, because I left, home when I was quite young, came and lived in Europe and stuff. So London is kind of like my second home, but I didn't feel like I wanted to raise a child in London. Plus, I quite like the idea of having lots of green space and just being able to kind of go and get my feet muddy. So, I've got a really good pair of walking boots that I still need to wear out completely. So I wasn't going to move into London and just live in the concrete jungle again. As beautiful and interesting as London is, I think it's so much better for a child to grow up.
Yes.
In a town where there's still like a sense of community. And being, weird, occult loving, folklorist magicians, whatever you want to call us, and vegetarians, and, kind of erring towards strange clothes in my case sometimes. I guess Glastonbury it's kind of like a place where actually we're amongst the more normal people here. So, from that perspective, it's very good. But there's also the links to, I was very influenced when I was much younger by Dion Fortune. She's had links in Glastonbury as well, and some of the other kind of occultists and magicians and stuff that I've really admired. A lot of them spend time here, so I guess in some ways it's kind of like understanding what they saw and what they felt as well, and kind of being able to explore that, because I've done a lot of the other things I've wanted to do now. And living in Glastonbury is a place that I could always come back to.
Oh, that's wonderful. Are you happy now on Glastonbury? Are you happy now?
I love it here. You can walk down the street and
I saw your photographs. I saw your photographs with your child, with your beautiful boy, and it's absolutely amazing because you can just walk and and the streets are absolutely amazing. Now I can see on back there on your back that you have quite a lot of effigies of Hecate, little statues. It's so beautiful. I just love it. And you actually posted on Facebook earlier this evening a few photographs of the altar that you just set up for us and to be here on Witchtalk. Thank you so much for doing that. It's amazing. Now, we're here to talk about the triple goddess archetypes. And there are people who have a very clear idea about this, and I think that you are one of them. So, yes. So would you mind to tell us a little bit about that, because there's a lot of misconceptions about it, and then we go to talk about the books and everything. So go ahead.
I mean, I think there's a lot of confusion more than there's a lot of misinformation as well about. Because the moment you say triple goddess, a lot of people immediately think of the modern psychological construct of Maiden, Mother, Crone.
Yes.
And, so it leads to a lot of misunderstandings, because triple does not necessarily equate to Maiden, Mother, Crone. Triple in a historical context, when you look at goddesses that aren't shown as being triple, they are always shown as being of the same age. So for example, I'll pick up one of these little statues. This one is easier to pick up. This is of Hecate. It's based on a Roman seal. I mean, this is just a massive use of it. But you can see that the faces, I don't know if the viewers will be able to see it, but you can see that the faces are all the same age.
Yes, they are. There's no...
These faces are the same, but the one I showed was actually based on a historical image. So, and with Hecate, that is always the case. She's always shown as a woman of like indeterminate age, younger, maybe, some people say in her 20s or in her 30s or something like that. It's definitely not this idea of like a crone that a lot of people start talking about. And I guess one of the reasons I became interested in this Maiden, Mother, Crone is because of my passion for Hecate, but also for because I have a passion also, as you would know, I've written on the Morrigan and on the Cailleach. And I've got a interest in a lot of different deities, not just Hellenic deities, but also a lot of the so-called Celtic goddesses and gods. And, I'm interested primarily in quite often how things fit together and why people start believing the things they do. So when I started encountering, was actually in a Fellowship of Isis group that I was briefly in about 11 years ago in London. And the woman who ran it was very kind of much of the view that, they were all these very wonderful goddesses of light. And then there were like dark goddesses, like Hecate. And the way she was talking about Hecate, at that point, I'd known him for a while. I've invoked her. I was already involved in, initiatory craft for a while. And I was involved in other things as well. And I've read a lot of stuff like that as a child. And so for me, this concept of this suddenly like telling me that there's this scary, really frightening goddess, it became quite a puzzle in my head, I guess, because I thought, I don't understand. Like, did you do something to upset this goddess? Why would this goddess appear to you like a werewolf type monster at night during storms and thunder and lightning? And why did she appear to you like that? Because my first thought would be, you've done something wrong. My experience is that the deities quite often make themselves known in a way that you can recognize what they're trying to say to you.
Yes.
And I don't always perceive Hecate or any deity that I've encountered on my journey through the mysteries, or any spirit or being, lots of different beings I've invoked and evoked, or been in the presence of people evoking possession, whatever, lots of different phrases for similar but not quite the same things. And I just thought, well, this is very peculiar. I don't understand. And it was around that time that I first encountered the Maiden, Mother, Crone concept, which, when I was initiated into Alexandrian craft, nobody ever mentioned this to me, but it might have been because my coven was very private. It was very much kind of doing their own thing. It was on the other side of the planet, and I still to this day don't know why they never brought it up. And I found out some groups do it, some groups don't, and that just seems to be the light of it. So I thought, well, what is this Maiden, Mother, Crone thing? And it set me off. Actually, it's probably one of the reasons that I started doing so much research into Hecate. Ironically, it was to try and figure out what these people that were seeing Hecate as this like haggard, monstrous being, why they were seeing her this way. And I kind of started. It's kind of like a little bit when you do research, when you're trying to prove or disprove a particular point. It's a little bit like being a detective, because
Yes.
you try to, it's kind of he said, she said, stuff. And to begin with, I spoke to a lot of people, and, I started looking at different things, and I kind of learned, the basic things about the Maiden Mother Crone, that each of the phases, for people unfamiliar with listening, represents the life of women. So apparently, according to whoever came up with this concept and people teaching this concept, there was the idea that a woman's life is reduced to being a maiden, and then a mother, and then a crone. And immediately I kind of looked at this and I thought, you know what, I've got so many women that I know, so many priestesses I know, that have never been mothered.
Absolutely.
Not in the traditional sense, they've never given birth.
Yes.
Conversely, I actually know a couple of virgin priestesses, like women that have actually never had sex with men, and in fact, in one case, never had sex with a woman either. So actually, a virgin in the completely untouched sexual way. And I also know a lot of people that become involved in magic when they are actually in their cronehood, i.e., post-menopause. Who then theoretically, if you're kind of using these as like magical concepts, would never have really gone through the maiden and mother in the sense of magic, but only through in their lives. So and then I thought, but what about women that are barren, women that can't have children, women that choose not to have children, women who are, lesbians, who basically don't want to have children, and also possibly don't experience the Maiden Mother Crone in exactly the same way because they have other priorities. Career women, women, and there's so many different things that women go through, women that have been sexually abused as children, whose maidens literally been ripped away from them. There's so many complex issues surrounding, the phases of a woman's life that's reducing them, for me, to just simple Maiden Mother Crone seems like a really big insult to women. That's just
Yes.
I'm currently a mother, but, I still have other things in my life as well. My whole life is not consumed with being a mother. I realise that some women, have that, that they really want to be mothers and that it's all consuming. My little boy is incredibly important to me, and I hope I'm a good mother, but it's not my only thing in my life. And I looked at it and I explored it a little bit in ritual with other people, and, where other people were facilitating rituals. I even facilitated a couple of rituals myself in which these things were being explored. And I just thought, actually within ritual, it somehow works. So now it works in ritual, but I can't get my head around it intellectually. And, that's a problem as well, face it, because, of course, on the one hand, I want to be intellectual, but on the other hand, I'm very much somebody that's into experience, and I don't believe that you
Yes.
can understand magical, spiritual concepts without experience. So for me, it was this kind of like dilemma, and it became more and more, all-consuming. So I started really looking, and I found out a lot of things. And one of the things that have become entirely clear over the last 10, 12 years that I've been researching this idea is that the concept of the Maiden Mother Crone is a 20th century invention.
Here we go. Yes.
Okay. There's nothing like it in history prior to the 20th century. So I started looking really, really hard. I found that the earliest originator of the idea was the Cambridge classicist, a lady called Jane Ellen Harrison. And she wrote a book called Prolegomena to the Study of Greek Religion, published in 1903.
Yes.
And it's cited by other scholars as well that this is the first example of a maiden mother and other unnamed goddess. And it's cited by, I'm not going to name them because otherwise it's like a whole new debate that I need to explain, and we probably run out of time. But it's actually cited by some very prominent pagan scholars today that this is the origin, and they state that it's the first example of a maiden mother and other. However, looking at the book, which I then started doing, it's clear that actually Jane Ellen Harrison is not to blame for this whole fiasco. It's like if you look at her work and you read it in in the context of what she's actually saying, she actually makes a very clear distinction between the maiden and the mother on the one hand, and the triple maiden on the other side. And the triple maiden is what you more often find in history. And for example, I'll just read this little bit to you. Harrison says, when the triple form is established, it is noticeable that in Greek mythology, the three figures are always regarded as maiden goddesses, not as mothers. They may have taken their rise in the mother and the maid, but the mother falls utterly away. Okay? So she then goes on to give some examples of the triple maiden, not mentioning Hecate, but emphasizing the occurrence of the phenomena, commenting that the charities, the morae, also better known as the faith, and the horae, are all essentially maiden goddesses, or triple maidens, basically. So, look, I've looked around, and there's lots of little things that kind of point to things. Nothing quite as clear as her. She definitely doesn't have an other, and she definitely makes the distinction. She doesn't say that there's a goddess that is a maiden, mother, and crone, which is what the modern pagan scholars have tried to suggest. She actually is making that very clear distinction, that this idea of maiden and mother, maidens and mothers interacting, like for example Demeter and Persephone, does exist. It is not the same as the triple maidens. Yes, so she's very clearly making a distinction. So that idea should be kind of wiped out. So whoever originated the idea of the maiden mother crone in the early 20th century, the idea was really popularized by Robert Graves through his writing, especially The White Goddess, which was published in 1948. In The White Goddess, Graves perpetuates the theme, and also in other of his books, and he starts talking about the maiden, the mother and the crone, and also sometimes the maiden, the nymph and the crone. So actually Graves makes some allowance for women who actually doesn't want to, or for whatever reason cannot bear children, by kind of actually substituting the mother role with the nymph. So, for example, in his Greek myths of 1957, he observes the moon's three phases of new, full, and old recall the matriarch's three phases of maiden, nymph, nubile woman, and crone. Graves, of course, wrote a lot of books, including some books on Jungian mythology, which is not very much talked about in modern circles, modern pagan circles. But, for example, in there, he also mentions, in referring to the Judgment of Paris, he talks about the different goddesses that are involved in the Judgment of Paris, and he says these three goddesses are one goddess in triad. The moon is maiden, bride, and crone. So again, you can see how he's popularizing this idea of a threefold goddess. But of course,
now we have two questions here on the chat room. The first one is someone that it's asking you. Let me see here. Would you say that the maiden, mother, and crone concept is a nostalgic misunderstanding of the past?
I think so entirely. But I think it's not just a nostalgic misunderstanding. I think it's kind of like it's not quite a hankering to a golden age that never was, but
yes,
it's something a little bit more. I think sometimes something a little bit more sinister. Sometimes
than that,
because it's so much applied to women. The idea that actually it was popularised mostly through male writers. I mean, Robert Graves being one of them, but also Aleister Crowley was very much, especially when it comes to Hecate. In his novel Moonchild which was written in 1917 but published 12 years later in 1929, he describes that of the triple lunar goddess that the third part of it is Hecate, a thing altogether of hell, barren, hideous, and malicious, the queen of death and evil witchcraft. Hecate is the crone, the woman's past or hope of motherhood, her soul black with envy and hatred of happy and mortal. I mean, how ridiculous, okay?
Oh my god! Oh my!
But Crowley
yes.
didn't like her. I mean, in a work of his published in 1907, he actually has an invocation of Hecate. This is like 10 years before he wrote Moonchild in 1907. it's in volume 3 of his collected works, if I'm remembering correctly. He goes, "O triple form of darkness, sombre splendour, thou moon unseen of men, thou huntress dread, thou crowned demon of the crownless dead," which is actually a completely different concept that actually fits in with the historical Hecate, because she is kind of in charge of all kinds of spiritual beings, demons being one of them. And then some of the later kind of things, demons. But demons and daemons not being the same thing is something that a lot of modern writers are also misunderstanding.
Absolutely.
Especially talking about this kind of hankering back, this kind of misspellings of words, in order to make it more authentic.
Yes, let me just ask you another question, which is very interesting. It says, how do you explain that this phallocratic, I love this word, this phallocratic concept, the Maiden, Mother, and Crone, was actually taken up by many feminist pagans?
That's the problem I've been kind of struggling with for more than 10 years since first encountering it. Like I said, my introduction to magic and occult practices went through anybody that kind of ever mentioned this, because I think if they did, I would have run for the hills. I might never be doing what I'm doing if somebody mentioned it to me 20 years ago as being some kind of thing that I had to do, which is how I started encountering it in the circles I was moving in for a very brief time, 12, 11 years ago. And it just completely puzzles me. I really don't have an answer to that. I think that sometimes, and it really bothers me, to be perfectly honest, because I think it's one of the most dangerous things going on in modern paganism and contemporary magical practice as well, where there's a tendency for the so-called, the trendy term at the moment is unconfirmed personal gnosis, to be taken more seriously than like historical evidence. And, you know, my opinion is that you need kind of like a balance, but if you start reinventing everything, you end up kind of like spending your entire life essentially inventing something that already exists by working through everything that doesn't exist and finding it out the hard way. And, you know, so I think that there's a lot of knowledge and wisdom that we need to learn from our ancestors and from what they've left us in literature, in art. And when I say our ancestors, I mean, you know, I'm mostly European, so, you know, my ancestors would include Romans and Celts, probably somewhere, I don't know that, actually, probably mostly Romans and people from, like, some of the Teutonic tribes and, you know, from Turkey, that region, I now know I've got some ancestors from as well. So, you know, there's so much, if you really go back into it, you know, I'm not, you know, like I said, I grew up in Africa, so I've got kind of like my personal visions of the world is informed from what I've experienced, just like everybody else. But I think that we can learn so much more by looking at the people that went before us did. You know, we pay lip service to the whole idea of Halloween or Hallows, Samhain, where we say, you know, this is the festival to our beloved dead and the wisdom of our ancestors. But are we actually listening to them? You know,
I don't think so, actually. You know, most of the time, no.
They've left so much behind, you know, and I don't mean our immediate ancestors, I don't mean our literal grandmothers and grandfathers, but for generations, you know, these people have learned and they've left records, and I think that we need to actually start looking at that, because in modern paganism and a lot of contemporary magical practices, we need to, I think we need to sometimes just go back to basics, really. There's just so much layers of illusion and delusion that's been caused by misinformation being perpetuated. Nobody's checking their facts. I mean, I've been guilty of that. I think one of our first interviews that I did with you, we talked about the book that David and I did called Wicca Magical Beginnings, and which looked at the kind of origins of the Wiccan practices, and saying how, I think in that I admitted that, you know, one of the things that happened there was that when we started writing it was because people were asking us, students were asking us questions, and I found one day that I was answering something, and I was actually parroting what I'd been told. And halfway through it, I kind of went, you know, actually disregard everything I said. because I've just realised that that's complete nonsense. You know, I know better than that. I have for many years already known better than that. But for some reason, I just found myself repeating, because it's a tradition, so you pass on what you've been taught. And I think that that's good, but I think we also need to question what we are being taught. Because not all our teachers are equal. Not all people are equal. You know, it would be nice, I think we all have the ability to be equal. But if we were all the same, how dull life would be, you know.
No,
nobody
would be very boring.
Tonight, we wouldn't be talking to each other, because you'd already know everything I know, and I'd already know everything you know, and, you know, stuff. I'm very passionate about debating things and getting people to question, you know, things that they think is right. And for me to be questioned in the same way, because, you know, if I'm involved in a debate with somebody or with a whole group of people, you know, I'm hoping that people in that will also challenge whatever it is that I'm saying, you know, to say, well, actually, you know what, you might be wrong, you know, and this is why you're wrong, not just you're wrong, but actually this is the reason I think you're wrong, you know. And you know, so I don't have an answer to that question. I really don't know why things like this is being perpetuated when there's so many more interesting things to explore, not just about Hecate, but about all the deities that are usually lumped together in these triple goddess formats. You know, it's really frustrating, and I personally see it as being, in some instances, not all, and I realise it's not intended as being such, but I actually see it as sometimes quite, just like I see the idea as being insulting to women, I see it as being very insulting to the gods involved, because it limits them. It says, you know, for example, one of the other goddesses I've often seen put into like one of these boxes is like the Morrigan, yeah? And whenever it's the Morrigan, she's always in the Crone position as well, you know, because she's so scary. And, you know, and it's like, well, actually she's a shapeshifter. She appears as like a really sexy woman in some instances, you know, and she also appears as all kinds of animals. And by putting her in that one role and stereotyping her like that, you are dismissing all her, you know, multiple functions and roles and all her powers and abilities and stuff like that. You're just absolutely dismissing it, you know, in the kind of flick of a hair, you know, which is, these deities are so much older than us. And, you know, whatever our personal beliefs are, you know, whether we think one goddess is all goddesses and all goddesses are one goddess, and whether we're fully polytheist or pantheist, panentheist or henotheist or whatever theist we want to be, I think that it's important that we actually respect our deities, that we say we call on, by first actually finding out a little bit about who they are, you know.
I know, and no, one of the things, I'm just listening to you, and at the same time, I'm multitasking. Isn't that amazing for a man? That's amazing.
Yeah,
no, it is.
Very special man, aren't you?
Now, I am reading all of the things that are going on the chat room, and it's really, really amazing, all of these questions. Oh, you have your little bat. I just love that little bat.
Yeah, I can do dark magic with the fluffy bat, but okay, let's go on.
I know. We can be a little bit of a black bunny now. With the black.
One of those. Got a black bat.
No, I know, but you know, like the gothic things and everything. Now, there's this thing here on the chat room, and it's very interesting. People are talking about, well, how old is Wicca and blah blah. So we know that Wicca is actually very recent. I mean, it started with Gardner in the 50s, but if you read Sorita D Este's and David Rankine's book about Wicca Magical Beginnings, you can see that there are a lot of concepts that are not that modern. Can you talk us a little bit about that? Because there's this kind of, well, what, you know, is it recent? Is it not? You know.
I mean, I think it's quite a big thing, and I realise that it's very difficult for people to actually get their heads around it, because it's clear that Joel Gardner and his followers, and then subsequently, you know, Maxine and Alex, that a lot of the things they were doing were very modern. You know, especially when you look at Gardner's contribution, a lot of it is based on Aleister Crowley in Wicca Magical Beginnings. David and I actually
show us the cover. Okay, because I don't have it here with me.
It's actually available on Kindle now as well, so people can download it for a fraction of the print cost. So
that's great. Yes,
you know, and it's the book's been very influential within initiatory circles, but also actually a lot of ceremonial and grimoire magicians and ceremonial magicians and grimoire magicians quite often find that they read it more like a history book for their practices as well, because the interesting thing I think about what we found, and since this edition was published, we've actually found out quite a lot more stuff is crossed our way in one way or another. The general gist of it is that I'd say that what we know as Wicca today, in the kind of initiatory craft context of it, yes, to a large extent that was kind of contemporary with Joel Gardner, but there's a few problems with that. I think that if you disregard the Crowley contribution, which I think was probably added around the time of Gardner, whether he did that himself or whether it was done by one of his colleagues is not entirely clear. Although Gardner himself says that they basically elaborated on the rituals that he could remember from when he was initiated into the so-called New Forest Coven. Now, the interesting thing is that if you actually look at the key practices, which is what we do in Wicca Magical Beginnings, we disregard what people say. We disregard, you know, all the theories and things about was he initiated, wasn't he initiated. We basically go, you know what, actually it's not important. What is important is understanding the practices, the beliefs. Where did they come from? Yeah? So regardless of what these people are telling us, let's actually look what the evidence say. You know, so we disregard on the whole, you know, although we do refer to it sometimes, most of the hearsay. And we basically get stuck into it and we look at where does the practices such as the blessing and consecration of the salt and water come from? Where does the magic circle come from as it's used in Wicca? Where does the invocation of the guardians of the watchtowers come from as it is used in Wicca? Where does the practice of drawing down the moon and the charge of the goddess come from as it is used in Wicca? The great rite, the initiation ceremonies, and little things like the Book of Shadows, the term so moted be, blessed be, you know, all those little things that essentially is universal between Gardnerian and Alexandrian Wicca, and most of these things have actually been taken nearly exactly as it was and transferred into all the various neo-pagan traditions and the so-called exoteric traditions of Wicca and the offshoots of Alexandrian and Gardnerian. So most Wiccan traditions use it in one way or another. So it must be important because the practices is what is carrying people through. And what we found is that on the whole, most of these practices, probably as more or less a coherent whole, existed at least 20, 30 years before Gardner. In some cases, there's evidence to suggest that actually, in some ways, the starting of gelling together of things like the salt and water, circle casting, calling of the guardians, the invocations, not the drawing down, not the religious side, but the practical side of it, was already developing around 1800. That's not something that we clearly state in Wicca Magical Beginnings because we suggest that in here, but we've since then actually uncovered more evidence that actually prove it to a large extent.
I have it.
You have it?
Yes, I do. It's Wicca Magical Beginnings, yes.
You know, so there's a lot of things in there. You know, for example, I use the circle casting. It's probably the most amazing, really. People familiar with, you know, they make a lot of poo-poo about things like using the broom to sweep the circle. You know, oh, that's very make-believe, isn't it? Well, actually, there's a practice like that in ancient Egypt where a broom was used to sweep the circle in a sunwise direction in the temple. In ancient Egypt, there was a practice of actually invoking deities at the four-directional point, which is very similar to the idea of guardian. We found the circle casting not only can be found nearly as it is, but in a kind of like, in Wicca, in a simplified, more portable format. But in the grimoires, going, you know, ahead hundreds of years before Gerald Gardner, the circle casting is there, and some of the other elements that becomes in Wicca is there. It can be proven to be hundreds of years older than Gerald Gardner. In fact, the earliest circle casting that we found a hint of dates to about 3000 BCE. That's 5,000 years ago, with a description of what would be, I guess, equal to a wand, like a stick with carvings on it, being used to go in a sunwise direction, marking a circle on the ground around the magician whilst he's speaking words. So these practices, I think dismissing Wicca wholesale is a mistake. Dismissing it all as an invention of Gerald Gardner is giving Gerald Gardner a hell of a lot of credit for experience and knowledge that he would not have had because he was a latecomer to magic. Yes, he had a lot of interest in folklore and religion before that, but magical practice, I think, as anybody listening will know, is as you work something, as you work a system, even if it's a system that you learn from a book or from a teacher, but with time you make little changes until you get to a point where actually it works, and you might not change it again, or you might. Mm-hmm. But that's quite normal, and that happens in pretty much all magical traditions, where there's little changes that each individual with experience enacts on it. The evidence for that in some of the practices of Wicca is very much there already by the time Gardner starts teaching it. But in other aspects it's not there. Like, for example, the charge of the goddess is there's parts of it that really doesn't make very much sense for somebody that has a lot of occult knowledge. But it makes a lot of sense. For example, in the charge of the goddess, it's very popular. Whoever compiled that, because Gardner didn't write it, Doreen didn't write it, that's all complete and utter chocolate teapot. Let's have a drink to that.
Oh, yes.
It's complete nonsense.
Here we go.
Basically,
I'm turning to the devil. I'm turning the devil because I'm beginning to be red. Oh no, not okay. I'm fine. I regressed in my transformation into the devil.
Yes. So there's a lot of evidence to show, no matter how beautiful it is, it's just that I think we're not looking at the evidence. Looking at the evidence is a lot more interesting than listening to hearsay. It's like that with all gossip, basically.
Absolutely, yes.
Quite often the reality behind it is a lot more interesting, and I prefer the more interesting stuff in that.
Oh, absolutely. Now, Wicca Magical Beginnings actually was not really a book that we were going to talk about, but it's an essential book for anyone who is interested, because in Wicca and its origins and the principles. One of the most amazing things that you have here is that if you go through the contents, the table of contents of the book, you can see that there is a lot of things that are, you can say that people often ask about it, and that was actually the foundation of this book, because you wrote it because your students asked a lot about it. And you have the Great Rite, the Chants, the Sabbats, the Pentagram, the Baptism, the Book of Shadows. There's all of these concepts are explained here or researched here by Sorita and David. It's actually called Wicca Magical Beginnings, a study of the possible origins of the rituals and practices found in this modern tradition of pagan witchcraft and magic. Wicca Magical Beginnings in Avalonia books. So, let's talk a little bit, before we go to the other three books, of something that is very dear to your heart and to mine also, which is Hekate Her Sacred Fires. We know that we're doing an anniversary, right? It's a year now that the Coven of Hekate has been up, right? Is that it?
The Covenant of Hekate was officially launched as November 2010, and that the Covenant of Hekate was a direct result of the work that I did with. I'll just get the book for people.
Yes.
With this book, Hekate Her Sacred Fires. In this book, basically, there's 50 different people that contributed artwork and prose and essays to it. So really, the book isn't. People say that it's my book and stuff like that, but I've authored a lot of books, I've edited a lot of books, and this book doesn't feel like it's my book. It feels more like it's my. I don't know what. It's kind of like I gave birth to it, but there's so many mothers and fathers. And there are lots of men involved as well. it's personal experiences of all these people and their own kind of ideas and things like that they have about Hecate. And, some people wrote in their second and third languages and stuff like that. And, it's a very personal account of what people have experienced, why they're working with Hecate. There's things in there that I agree with, that I disagree with. There's some beautiful stories, some really quite harrowing stories, and just people from so many different traditions coming together and just sharing their passion, really, So in many ways, it's kind of more like it's a book that brings together. It's for people that are passionate about Hecate, but also it's unique in the sense that it's the biggest book of its kind, and it's completely unique in bringing together that many essays and opinions and ideas about any one goddess in modern time. So it's utterly, I think it's a good read for people that work with other deities as well, from the perspective that it will open their minds about just how differently people can today still see one goddess. There's not one right way necessarily. All these essays and all the things in here have something that I agree with. And I would say that there are some of them that I vehemently disagree with some of them, but, I found
one of the things that I wanted to ask you about this, which is, your work and of so many people, is this concept of, and you touched upon that when we talked about it, and you showed us the Hecate medallion. It's this people insist, and I think that this was a late Roman idea. I think about putting Hecate in a crone role.
No, it's the 20th. It's the 20th.
It's the 20th century. Okay, because why Hecate? I mean, there's so many other, and all of them actually. The Morrigan is going to be a hag all her life.
It's bizarre. Carrigan. It is so utterly weird. I mean, like that quote I read earlier from Crowley, from his book Moonchild, which he wrote in 1917 and which was published in 1929. Mm-hmm. He calls altogether a thing of hell, barren, hideous, malicious, queen of death, evil, witchcraft, and then he specifically Hecate is the crone, the woman past all hope of motherhood. And this is not true, because actually one of the things that's very neglected about Hecate is that actually she is and was in many cultures and in many traditions actually a mother goddess. Let me just see if I can find it. I don't know. It's in this book. It's a modern... here we go. It's a modern depiction of Hecate as a mother goddess actually holding... I don't know whether the camera will pick up the detail on it because I know it's quite small. There's an image. It's a modern image by an artist called Georgie Misheff, who also contributed to this book. And if readers can actually see that, there's a triple goddess holding a baby. And that's very much how she was seen, like in the Thracian. I
don't know if I can show this to people, but it's the same image right here. Yes.
And there's also depictions of her from the kind of like late Hellenic period, where she's actually shown very much like the goddess Isis, and she's merged with Isis in antiquity already. In the Greek magical papyri, for example, you get Isis Hecate as like, they become one being during that period, which is very common during the Roman period, of course, as well, to kind of merge deities and kind of create a super deity. But no, it's an entirely 20th century. What is true about Hecate in the Roman period, she picks up a lot of her darker roles. She becomes more and more seen as like the queen of death, and her association with witchcraft and things like that.
Why do you think that happened? I mean, clearly it must be something on their society, on their transformations, What was it? What do you think?
I think that we have a misunderstanding today. The idea that I think this Maiden Mother Crone thing is half to blame for it, actually, which is that we like to simplify things, okay? So we simplify things and we say, well, all goddesses must be either Maiden, Mother, or Crone, okay? So then we look at Hecate, and she's like this really powerful goddess is called the Mother's Angel. She's got the title Sorita, which means Saviour in the Chaldean oracle. She's the light bearer, she's the light bringer, she's the torch bearer of the mysteries, actually kind of leading the psychopomp role that she's got. She's Choratropis, meaning nursemaid, which is a title that a lot of ancient goddesses shared, including Artemis is very popularly a kind of goddess of childbirth. And I think we simplify things. So we go, well, she's very powerful, this Hecate, therefore she must be a crone. Well, I think that anybody that has spent time in life actually observing people will know that power does not necessarily come with old age. Wisdom itself doesn't always come with old age. I've heard children speak words of wisdom that far outweigh that of old people that I know.
Yes. So age is not really the facts. Yes. There is a question here also. Sorry to interrupt you, Sorita. Was there a political agenda against Hecate that might have transformed how she was perceived by the Romans? I think
that in the later period when Christianity started coming in, yes, definitely. Around the 3rd, 4th century CE, we definitely start seeing Hecate as kind of having more and more, things to do with kind of like the darker side, as we would call it today. But that is neither here nor there, because I don't think being associated necessarily, I think we'd be putting modern values on things here. Mm-hmm. Being associated, for example, with serpents, right? So I think if we interpret that as being dark, then really we're looking more at it through Christian eyes, where the serpent symbolises something a little bit kind of bad because of the Garden of Eden. Whereas the serpent, for example, can be seen as a symbol of wisdom. Yeah, and in ancient symbolism, the serpent more often is something associated with wisdom than it is something necessarily demonic. Likewise, the kind of association with ghosts and spirits of the dead and things like that, not necessarily a bad thing. It is a power thing. It makes her a very liminal goddess that kind of can move between the living and the dead, for example. But she's also the kind of, and that role very much kind of links in with her role towards Persephone, where she's the psychopomp leading Persephone on her yearly journey into the underworld, but also bringing her out again. So I think that it's the way that we are interpreting things can often make
be a little bit, a difference. Go ahead, sorry.
I don't think these things are necessarily, evil or bad. I think that, yes, from the perspective of the Christianity, especially like after the Council of Nicaea in 325 CE, and when the Byzantine Empire starts, and all these kind of things start changing the way the society works, But the Temple of Eleusis stood still until the very late 4th century, So because sometimes I think we've also got this perception that paganism just stopped, I don't even like the term paganism very much, but the religions that preceded Christianity and existed, coexisted alongside it for 4 or 5 centuries in some cases quite prominently, but they just ceased to exist about 2,000 years ago. But of course, things like the Temple of Eleusis still existing up to about 300, I think the latest date given for it is 396 CE. Mm-hmm. Makes it like that many years later, so the influence of Christianity would have been felt on these religions as they developed. And of course, a lot of the writings that are left to us are by Christian writers. So yes, definitely, political motivations, definitely. But I also think that interpretation from a modern perspective sometimes leads, just creates kind of confusion, because you do need to read text in context.
Now, why do you think that there's this whole resurgence of interest in Hecate? I mean, this is something very interesting. We had the rites of her sacred fires 2 years in a row. It's beautiful. People all over the world is doing this. Why there is so many people all over the world, and it's just this god. I mean, I don't know if there's any other goddess. Probably there is, but Hecate's definitely one that it's common to a lot of people, and there's this huge interest in Hekate. Why do you think that is?
Simply because she's awesome. No, in all seriousness, I think that there's some deities that are more relevant to us today than others from the ancient world. And I'm one of those big believers that I think I've got more of an interest in my own spiritual magical work in deities and entities that managed to survive, as I say, usually when people ask me. And, whereas a lot of deities, essentially, their cults died until very recently, people probably never even spoke their names on a regular basis. There are some deities that have managed to kind of adapt and adopt themselves throughout, their existence and continue to do so today. And I think Hekate is one of them. She's developed these like two completely different sides of her today. That there's a lot of people that do strongly associate her now with kind of, so-called left-hand path magic, traditional witchcraft, all these kind of things, which is more actually traditionally a role that was described to Diana, the Roman goddess Diana, who of course is very closely also linked to Hekate, so it's not difficult to see why that would come about. But Hekate has managed to survive, like Diana, like the goddesses Venus and Aphrodite, like Isis. There's like a handful of goddesses who always manage to capture the imagination of artists and of poets. Dionysus being one of them as well, which I know Indigo mentioned earlier. Dionysus very closely linked to the cult of Hekate, interestingly. So there's certain deities that have managed to kind of adapt themselves and somehow capture the imaginations of people. And I think Hekate falls very strongly into that role. I also think that she's very much a goddess of the now, because one of her very clear and important roles in the ancient world, and I think she's got that same role now, and she's had that role throughout, like looking at all the texts and things like that. One of the things that I did for Hekate Her Sacred Fires is I created a timeline, which I called the Hekate Chronicles, which essentially is this timeline of all these different ways that she was seen throughout ages. And
I just love that. I could create a whole book around it. I mean, I only took some of the highlights. It's a timeline. It's called Visions of Hekate, and it's like all of the errors and the years, and you just going through, and you can just see it, and you actually have little bits of text that you kind of you transcribed, and you say where it comes from, and images. So it's really it's wonderful because you can actually see the statuary, and as well as the the text. So it's absolutely amazing. There is another question on the chat room that it's is Dionysus considered to be chthonic?
Chthonic?
Yes.
I guess it depends on how you see him. Yes, it could be, but I mean, the whole thing with deities, I think we can't just, it's that whole boxing them up. Yes, he's got chthonic aspects, I would say, but then, he's got all kinds of roles in his mysteries, and, his mysteries again span such a long period of time that during that, yes, there's some chthonic aspects to it, but there's so much more as well. So it's the same with Hekate. Her chthonic aspects, I think, is sometimes overplayed, considering it's only a small part of what she actually does. So it's good to see things into perspective.
There is another question that it's very interesting. Would you say that Hekate become more popular during times of transition, change, and uncertainty, in tune with her liminal nature?
That's an interesting question. We're certainly going through big changes in the world at the moment.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
There's a lot of people that I think it fits a lot with her role as Satyra, actually, which is a title actually that is given to her quite a lot in the Chaldean oracles, where she's also referred to as the world soul. And it's the kind of primary, I guess for me, I work very much with the Chaldean Hekate, and then my own ideas on that in my own work. But I think that would be right. I think that is probably a very good way of putting it, because Hecate is one of those goddesses that managed to like adapt to Christianity in a certain way in the early times, and there's even like some evidence there that she was like Mithras, actually in competition with the early cult of Christ. And so from that perspective, I think that she adapts. She certainly adapts, and I think that because of her ability to like illuminate and actually rid people of illusion, calling on her fully and really from the kind of bottom of your heart, and learning and getting to know her, really one of the things that it does for a lot of people that I've noticed over the years that I've worked with is that it does dispel kind of misconceptions and things like that. And of course that can be a really difficult thing to go through in itself, but in times of trouble I think that can be a really good thing, because in times of, like, for example, at the moment there's a lot of financial issues in the world that is coming to a head, and Europe is quite unstable. Most of the world is unstable in one way or another financially. There's all these like economic doomsday things, and you've got all the kind of prophecies for 2012 and stuff coming up as well. So a lot of people are feeling a little bit unsettled and wondering, what the future is going to hold. And I think she's got the ability to allow you to kind of cut away all the kind of debris and all the things that are kind of holding you back. Doing so, it's like a little bit like the Hanged Man on the tarot or something like that. It's really literally kind of getting rid of so much, which can be an incredibly scary process for some people. And some people will hold on to as much as they can of what they're familiar with. But I think people that fully embrace Hecate, one of the things that happen with that is this feeling that actually no matter what you do, you just have to let her get on with it. You've got to put your trust in her, nearly. In an intelligent way, not in a blind way, because I don't think she tolerates that blind, it's not blind devotion that she wants. It's very much, active, gung-ho, let's get out there, let's do something, let's change things. So I don't find, that she kind of sits back and not change things. Things change when you bring her into your life. So yes, I guess, yes.
Yeah. Now we can talk a little bit about Artemis, the Virgin Goddess. You have this wonderful book. People are saying, well, we're publicize a lot of books of Avalonia. They're all good. How can we not? Artemis, Virgin Goddess of the Sun and the Moon, a comprehensive study of the Greek goddess of the hunt, her powers, myths, and worship. It's an absolutely amazing book, and a study on this goddess that I can't recommend it more.
Let me just go back to the comment you just made about Avalonia books. If people are actually interested in learning about Hecate, there aren't that many books that deal with her history, other than actually mine and David's Liminal Rites.
That's true.
But there's also a couple of other books that I always recommend to people.
Yes.
One of them is by an academic publisher, and it's a book called Hecate Soltera by Sarah Iles Johnston. And it's a fantastic book. It's a very heavy read. It's very factual. It's very, very well written and researched. And the other book is a book called just simply The Goddess Hecate, and it's by Stephen Ronan. It's very difficult to get, unfortunately, but if you can find a copy of that, those two books are fantastic. There are a lot of other books about Hecate now as well. She's become quite a popular subject. Avalonia has now published 4 books on her, so that's unfortunately true. It's very difficult to talk about her without mentioning Avalonia, but those 2 books that I've just mentioned, neither of them are published by Avalonia. If somebody wants to go and read them, by all means do. But these books all offer different things. I mean, that's the main thing, is they offer different things. There's no other book that you're going to get the information in that you're going to get in Hekate Her Sacred Fires. Likewise, the Hekate Liminal Rites, or with the other anthology, Hekate Her Sacred Fires, that Hekate Keys to the Crossroads that I did. it's the same with the other books that are being published on Hecate. There's so many that, I can't remember everybody's names now, so I'm not going to stop mentioning them for fear of not remembering one.
Yes.
But I think it's important to understand that if you actually want to learn about these deities, then you have to look at not just the history in a superficial way, but you really need to look. So books are one way of doing that. The other way would be for people to actually research themselves, and the stuff that has gone into some of my books, and like Hekate Her Sacred Fires, it's got the experiences of 50 people. So the knowledge and stuff that 50 people have is not something one person can possibly get, even in 10 or 20 years of practice and study, because it's the combined.
Absolutely.
It's a combined magic of everybody that makes it special. It's not me or Avallonia, it's the people writing for it.
Well, but we have to. I'm sorry if people have a problem with publicity of Avalonian books. That's their problem. We don't have it, do we? So, let me just ask you a question. There's a question on the chat room. It says, "Are your books turning into DVDs, Sorita?"
I don't know.
They want to see you, and David probably.
Getting into DVDs, I don't know. We are working towards making more of our titles available on Kindle. And
that's a good thing, yes.
Well, David and I we've kind of been on a magical hermitage for the last 4 years whilst we've been in Wales, and we've done very little public work. Those familiar with our work before that in London would have known that we did a lot of public and community work before that. But we have talked about possibly doing, we've got a couple of channels of our own on Ustream, but not very, we don't actually do that much on it. But we have talked about actually doing more material on there and making more things available, and possibly doing a few lessons and instructional type shows on there in the future. But it depends on when we've got the time, because we're both so engaged in our work and in our research and stuff like that, and just all the other things that happen in life as well. We've got to work, and we've got children. So what, a child, just one child, touch wood.
Yes.
So
yes.
So there's not that much time to for us to kind of get involved in too many new projects at the moment. But we're open to the idea. I'm not against it, but there's no plans like that at the moment.
No, I would love. And the other thing is also Avalonian audiobooks. People would love to kind of listen to your voice while they're driving, and it's like Sorita D Este talk to them about the Cailleach, or
they can download your show, Carrigan, and they can listen to that.
Yeah, I know, that's true. But it's not the same thing. So we're talking about this fantastic book. Let me show you, people. The Cailleach. It's an exploring the myths and folklores and legends of the preeminent Celtic hag goddess. And here, do we see the Cailleach is a hag goddess? I mean, there's no doubt, right?
Yes. She's one of them. Just grab my copy of the book, which I think is behind.
You have the book there, because I saw it in the photograph.
Yeah, where did I put it? There it is.
Do you?
Okay.
Yes.
Got it. The Cailleach is, yes, her name literally means throne, and it comes from the Gaelic word for carrion, as in, the stuff that crows and birds like that eat. She's kind of linked in with deities like the Morrigan and Reed and a lot of it, and she's amazing. I'm so passionate. I can't, people think that I'm all about Hecate, but in fact I have got a huge passion for the Cailleach as well. And one of the things that make her so amazing is that the legends and stories told about her, they've travelled from Europe. We've traced her origins to the Iberian Peninsula, and in fact the country of Portugal is named after. Yeah, I know. You're Portuguese. You're one of the people of the Cailleach, literally.
I know.
So that the name literally comes from the port of the Cailleach, and the Cailleach supports your Cailleach, yeah?
Yes.
The name was originally a tribe that lived in that region called the Cailleachi, and they had this goddess that we believe is the origins of the Cailleach that then appears in Scotland and Ireland and in other parts of Europe as well as in the UK. And we found all kinds of wonderful things about her, but the important role about the Cailleach is that she's like the ancient bestower of sovereignty, you know, so there's a lot of amazing stories about her. However, she's not just, the thing with her, she's a goddess without a doubt, absolutely and completely and utterly. However, she's not part of a maiden mother crone. Again, you know, there's none of this maiden mother crone thing with her.
Yes.
One of the most important stories, I think, that is sometimes overlooked about the Cailleach is that essentially one of her stories, the story of her and the goddess Breed, as well as the son of the Cailleach, which is Angus. We don't know very much about the relationship between Angus and the Cailleach other than he's the son of her in this particular myth, is that essentially it's a Celtic version of the reason why there's summer and winter. And the Cailleach stands at the centre of this myth that kind of like portrays the changing between summer and winter within the landscape here. You know, there's a story about how she captures Breed to stop his son from marrying him. There's slight variations on it, and she kind of holds him her captive, usually, you know, at a mountain, quite often in Scotland, and you know, she forces Breed to wash her cloak so that her cloak will be snow white. And obviously that's the snow that covers the landscape in winter. And the Cailleach and Breed washes, so there's this whole story. But there's also a lot of stories about the Cailleach and her younger assistant, and stories about the Cailleach actually shape-shifting from being an old woman into a young woman. You know, so nothing is ever completely straightforward. So even though her name means, you know, crone, carrion, there's still a lot of kind of like associations with her, with you know, abilities to shapeshift into a younger woman, shapeshift. She's like a guardian of wells and of animals, and you know, she manifests in so many myths all across Britain, you know, shaping the land, literally shaping the land with rocks falling out of her apron. So yeah, she is definitely a hag, she's a crone. She sometimes appears with blue skin, you know, very scary and dark looking. You know, some people kind of say that she's a little bit like a green woman as opposed to the green man. You know, because she kind of appears in both winter and summer. She's not just a winter goddess, but there's just so many stories associated with her, you know, things that she's formed, burial chambers, lakes that are formed because of myths associated with her, including Loch Ness. The story going that the maid that she left in charge of this well that had to be capped at night, because there's a lot of stories about the Cailleach having to cap a well or something to do with water. And she left Nessie in charge of, not the monster, but a girl called this, in charge of capping this well. And the story often is that she fell asleep and she forgot, or she did something else and she forgot. And essentially the well floods overnight and creates Loch Ness. You know, so the Cailleach is like really associated with the landscape of Scotland and Ireland, and also, like I said, other parts of the UK. Really, really strongly so. So, yes, she's a crone goddess, but there's no maid mother crone here. There's just the shapeshifter that appears as an old woman in most cases, but has the ability to shapeshift into a woman, quite often in stories where she's bestowing sovereignty. You know, for example, there's stories where she appears as an old hag, and she kind of appears to like a band of brothers, and she says, well, you know, will you kiss me? Will you kiss me? And they all say no, 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 even though they desperately want something from her. And then usually it's the youngest brother or the most unlikely brother that says, yes, I will, you know, and then kisses her, and it becomes passionate. And then upon becoming passionate, she also transforms into a very beautiful woman, so she's very much like a fairy queen figure of Celtic
and she
mythology.
transforms herself. Now, there is a question here. Is there a connection between the Cailleach and Nicneven?
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of stories kind of linking her to Nicneven, and I will just kind of find the one that's in here, actually, just to remind myself. If I can do that. But yes, yes.
Yes, it is connected with Nicneven.
There's a connection, yeah.
Well, people are saying, while you're searching for that, people are saying that they actually would love to see a book with myths from many cultures that explain the seasons, like Cailleach, Persephone, and so it's an idea for Avalonian Books to kind of do a new book.
Give me more work, yes.
Yes. We don't know. Now,
I think it would be beautiful to do that, but yes, there's a whole chapter actually in here on Nicneven. That kind of Nicneven is actually mentioned as an alternative name for the Gaia Calding. So whoever that is, I'll do a little blog on it so that you can read it all, because trying to explain it in a few minutes isn't going to do it any justice. But yeah.
Now tell me, is there any? That's another question. Is there any goddesses that actually could fit, or actually do fit, in the Maiden, Mother, and Crone?
No, unfortunately not.
Sorry, no.
Sorry, the closest to it would be the Morrigan.
Okay. Let's talk about the Morrigan.
The problem is that the Morrigan doesn't have just the three faces as it was. She appears as a lot more, and she's specifically a shapeshifter. So the reason she appears in different forms is because she's a shapeshifter. So the Morrigan could, but all the other deities that are classically shown as having three forms, three faces, they're always shown as the same age. They are mostly maiden goddesses or maiden figures, in the case of things like the Faith and the Moirai, but they're shown as young women. In the case of Hecate, the only time that she's said to have different faces is actually when she's got the different faces of different animals, which is a very late occurrence and starts happening around the time of the Greek magical papyri. But again, it's three animals, it's not three women of different ages. You've got the martyrs, the Roman martyrs, the mothers, the dear martyrs.
Yes.
But again, they're all shown as the same age. There's several depictions of them that have survived into modern times. So you can just search for the dear martyrs Roman goddesses or something like that on Google, and I'm sure it will find you lots of examples of them, and they are very fascinating. And interestingly enough, they might actually be a survival of Hecate, because they're later developments. They were quoted to the fates of Roman time back then already, and the fates were very often linked to Hecate as well. So, and the same is true for the Cailleach. Like through it's very interesting to see how these things actually link together. With the Cailleach, for example, there's ways of linking the Cailleach to the so-called Sheila Magick figures, which is the nude female figures, which is a bit rude. They're usually kind of holding open their genitalia for display, and have like enlarged facial and body features and stuff like that. And the Cailleach can be linked to the Sheila Magick, and Hecate can be linked to Balbal, who was a figure that's not talked about a lot, but it's linked to the Eleusinian mysteries and Demeter, and who also does something very similar. And Balbal can be linked to the Cailleach. So the whole thing, kind of like when you start looking at it, there's all these wonderful links between these deities, which may or may not just be coincidence, or it may indicate something kind of older and, that are surviving in different cultural forms in different places at the same time. I think the jury will always be out on that.
Now, there is someone here asking, Sorita, why are some goddesses tripled? Why aren't they just single? Why is the importance of tripling goddesses like Hecate?
That's a very good question. Hecate wasn't always shown as a triple goddess. This is something actually that we haven't mentioned. She's today a lot of, especially in modern pagan circles where people aren't necessarily working with Hecate as, their primary goddess, and so people have a very light, superficial knowledge, maybe something gleaned from a website or a little entry in one of these like encyclopedia type books that are very popular and easy for people that are just starting out. But Hecate's origins is a great antiquity, and she's primordial, she's powerful, and she kind of goes back in prehistory, and the earliest kind of records of her go to about the 8th century BCE, but we can kind of speculate and kind of make links to her as being much older than that, possibly thousands of years older, into kind of ancient Thrace and into like the Hittite cultures and stuff like that. So she's phenomenally old. The earlier depictions of her are all of her as being single-bodied. In fact, the earliest depiction shows her very much in a pose that we would probably more often now think of for a goddess like Qabalah or Demeter, where she's throned with her arms resting on the throne, arms out, and in a very regal pose, very serious, very regal, and very much single-bodied, very plain, kind of images. And around the 4th century, these images of Hecate as being triple formed start appearing. The earliest is thought to have been done by the very famous Greek sculptor Artemis, and it stood near to Nike at the Parthenon, and it was just amazingly famous, basically. And after that, a lot of images started being based on this famous sculpture, which is kind of what happens today as well. I guess you see something that inspires you and then you copy it. We don't know exactly why, she became this triple-formed goddess. There's a lot of different possible reasons for it. One of the reasons I like is that she was associated specifically with crossroads, but not any crossroads. They were 3-way crossroads. She's called Trubia. She's not called, going in 4 directions. She's called going in 3 directions in a very literal way. So her crossroads that she's associated with is not a cross like that, but actually like a Y junction, if you like.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which was very common when you didn't have street planners, basically.
I know. Oh, hold on, because we're being interrupted by commercials, I think, on YouTube. You know how it is on Ustream. Ustream has this random commercials going on and on and on, and it's actually not our fault. It's not on our end. We don't have control out of that, so it's really a Ustream thing, right? So, I think so. Well, there's another thing. Are we free of the commercials? I think, yeah. And I think that's individualized for every person that it's watching. Another question that popped up here. It's very interesting. It's would you think that people are asking about, for you to talk a little bit about Shakespeare and the Shakespeare reference to Hecate, but there is a question that I wonder if Sorita thinks that Hecate will present herself in another 3,000 years' time.
I wish I could say that I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know whether this world that we live in will be here still for another 3,000 years, but it's quite possible. I think that, I don't know. I think she's a goddess that can adapt, and I think that she's adapted herself very well to modern life. I really don't see why not. If the world and humanity is still around in 3,000 years, or there's a form of some kind of surviving whatever we turn into, if we survive in another form, then I suspect yes. I really don't see why not. you know?
Yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. Now, how about this this connection with Shakespeare, and how Shakespeare just grabbed Hecate? I mean, was it just? Do you think that was it just an inspiration of what was actually he actually was in possession of some information that we were kind of we don't know? I mean, you know, normally authors do research, and I'm sure that and in his time, I think that he might have seen something. What do you think?
I think that it's very, very likely. I think that what we also need to understand is, I don't know who's asking this, because if the person's very familiar with Macbeth, as a play, they will know that obviously there's the three witches and stuff like this, and they're calling on Hecate for all kinds of dark ends and, you know, meddling in other people's affairs. There's a part of the play, and it's a little bit disputed on exactly who wrote it, because of course there's all these kind of arguments anyway about who wrote what and whatever else. But I think that we need to kind of look at it, and in the kind of same era that Shakespeare was writing, there was a lot of other writers that was also writing. You know, in the 14th, 15th century, Hecate was still popular enough in what is now Bosnia and Herzegovina to actually kind of be depicted on graves and stuff like that. You know, so she wasn't actually a dead goddess. She might not have been the religion of choice of Western society at that point, but it doesn't mean that they aren't places where actually she was still being worshipped in some form. You know, so for example, the example from Bosnia and Herzegovina shows her on a grave marker with two male horse riders, which is very kind of in line with the way that she was seen in Thrace. So kind of moving on to Shakespeare, in Macbeth, you know, she's kind of seen very much as like this dark goddess with a retinue of all kinds of beings, and, you know, some people think that parts of Macbeth was written by Christopher Marlowe, famous for Dr. Faustus, and there's all kinds of theories around it and blah, 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 blah. But, you know, I'm not Christopher Marlowe, the other one. Oh, I've gone completely blank, not Christopher Marlowe. There was another writer. But anyway, you know, whichever way...
It was not Shakespeare. It was not Shakespeare.
Thomas Middleton.
Yes, Thomas Middleton, yes.
You know, Hecate also kind of features obviously in A Midsummer's Night Dream, and, you know, kind of John Milton and all this kind of stuff. But in Macbeth, there's actually a monologue that is very rarely actually performed, and I was really surprised to see it, because I worked for a theatre for a little while, and Macbeth actually played there for a week, and I heard it like twice a day for 7 days, plus extra rehearsals and stuff. And I just never heard this particular monologue. And I understand that this is because this monologue actually was very rarely used. So in this monologue, I've just pulled it up on my screen so that I could actually read it, because I haven't memorised it. Hecate is actually telling off the witches. And it starts with, it's really long, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it starts with, "Have I not reasoned, Bedlams, as you are, saucy and overbold? How did you dare to trade and traffic with Macbeth in riddles and affairs of death? And I, the mistress of your charms, the close contriver of all harms, was never called to bear my part or show the glory of our art. And which is worse, all you have done have been put out for wayward sons, spiteful and wrathful, who, as others do, loves for his own ends, not for you." And then it goes on and on and on. Now, the interesting thing about this is actually Hecate seemingly telling off the witches in the story for being evil, for being bad, for not actually calling on her for her help, not actually taking what she would have given as advice and help. You know, which puts a completely different twist on it. So I think that if you're interested in that, then, you know, actually go and read the text of Macbeth so that you can... you know, put that into perspective, and whether or not Shakespeare or Middleton or whoever wrote it, and, you know, there's all these wonderful stories floating around at the moment with the new film and stuff as well. I think it doesn't really matter, but I think that whoever did it was one of those channels. Remember how I said earlier that I think some deities have an ability to inspire people of each generation. And Hecate is one of those. And one of the ways that she remained alive in the minds of people, even during eras where, Christianity was very, very strictly enforced upon the population in some parts of Europe, is she managed to kind of just find her way onto stage, So people were performing and calling on her in theatre, which is, as you might know from your theatre, it can still be a very magical act.
Absolutely.
And, you're still capturing the imaginations of people, and you're still introducing this deity, albeit in a kind of more, dark, witchy role, or something that maybe she was, morphed into for the purposes of survival there. I think that it's an example of how she survived, and like I said, she played a role around that same era. She just managed to always survive. So it's not just Shakespeare that might have been touched by her genius, because I really do think that, because Macbeth is one of Shakespeare's best known, as is Midsummer Night's Dream, and both of them feature Hecate, both of them feature kind of otherworldly beings and stuff like that. So I think that in many ways, yes, Shakespeare was one of the vessels that was being used by Hecate and by other beings maybe as well, to just keep their myths and knowledge alive in one way or another. Whether that's maybe, you can frown upon it as not being academic, but it kind of is interesting.
It is very interesting. Now, I think that we have to talk a little bit more about the Covenant of Hecate, and I wanted to show people the website. Let me see if I can show people the website of the Covenant of Hecate, because it's first of all, it's an absolutely amazing website, and second of all, I just I really love it. The way that he put this whole thing together, it's absolutely amazing. So let me just show people. This is the Covenant of Hecate website. If we can have it, maybe not. So let me just see if I can show people accordingly. If I can see if I can see this. Oh, okay. Hold on, I just have to tweak a little bit this. So, okay, here we go. So the Covenant of Hecate, this is the website, this is a new, well, this is not a new website, because you did this before, right? This is since the Covenant of Hecate actually existed, this website exists, right?
Yeah,
let's see if I can...
It's HecateCovenant.com, and basically, the Covenant of Hecate was born because of the Rite of the Sacred Fires and the book. There's also the Sacred Fires website, which might be why the website you're looking at looks different.
Yes.
Which is sacredfires.co.uk, specifically more about the book and the Rite of Her Sacred Fires, which is now being translated into 13 languages.
Yes. It was beautiful. I just loved it. It's amazing. It was a beautiful. First of all, it was a beautiful ritual, and second of all, it was a beautiful, movement. I think I could say that it was a movement of people. I think, and it was so amazing. How many people did you receive? Do you remember that? How many people? You told me at the time.
The first year in 2010, in May, we think that it was around 3,000, maybe 4,000 people that did it. And then this past year, it was slightly more. We think maybe moving towards 5,000. But there's no real way of knowing, because it's been, like I said, it's been translated now into 13 languages. And, I get mostly feedback from the Spanish, Portuguese, and English people that are doing it. But it's been done in Esperanto and Welsh. It's available in Serbian and in Greek and in German. And,
it was just beautiful.
Yeah. So, we're actually going to be doing a little kind of symposium in Glastonbury next year, but it's going to be a very small event, because I don't really have time to commit to doing a very large event at the moment, because of all the organisation and stuff that's going into it. But, I think the special thing about it is that it's drawn people together, and it's created communities, not just the Covenant of Hecate is kind of like the official thing that kind of came out of it, and there's quite a lot of people now that are full members, that are devotee members.
Yes.
We are developing the Covenant website quite a lot over the next few months. There's going to be a huge library of articles written by different members that's going to go on there on pretty much all aspects of Hecate. So it's going to be huge. We're building it into a community resource essentially, because everybody that's involved wants to learn, but they're also very passionate about sharing what they're learning with others. And kind of the emphasis is very much on community building. It's free to join. There's no fees. It's not a commercial organisation in any possible way. Which is why we set up a separate website for it, because although it was born out of the Hekate Her Sacred Fires project, and it was fueled very much by the Rite of the Sacred Fires, like the Rite of the Sacred Fires, there's no money involved. There's no money exchanging hands. It's a very old-fashioned way of application. People have got to send me an application form, handwritten. So it's very much for people that are dedicated. We do have online ways that we communicate with people once they are members, and we have a strong web presence. But it's very much about kind of bringing communities together. And there's some people all around the world that are doing amazing things already. We're just a year old, but there was a camp in the UK that was organised by my fellow Hecate author, Tara Sanchez, who lives up in North England. And, she brought together like members and other people that were interested for like a fabulous camp somewhere in a farm with a stone circle and stuff like that. It was a few weeks ago, actually. There's some of the members up in Australia, like Navakogo and Tina, as well. Tina Justice, they were all contributors to Hekate Her Sacred Fires, who's created like little community things, putting on a little ritual that they're sharing with other people, organising picnics and rituals and things like that. And we're starting to see kind of like some of the members in the US is doing similar things and stuff. So it's very much about kind of bringing people together, but then kind of being focused on creating local communities with people that share this like passion for Hecate can get together and do their own thing. There's no kind of prescription of what you can't do. We have some heated debates on our forums and stuff like that. But, at the end of the day, I think that's how we learn. We all have different things. The one thing that basically everybody has in common when they join, basically focused on Hecate as the cosmic world soul. So that's a Chaldean thing. So everybody's got to recognise that one aspect of her. But they can also recognise 20,000 other things that the rest of us don't, and it's fine as long as we've got that one commonality. So Hecate is the cosmic world soul, and everything else is cool too, as long as every member, shares that one thing, because it gives us a communal point to start from. And like I said, it's very much kind of based on creating communities and stuff like that. Since the early days, we're 1 year old now, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where things are going to go over the next few years, because it's an idea that I've had for so many years, and in fact about 4 years ago, just around the time, more than 4 years ago now, probably more like 5 years ago, I sat down with a really good friend of mine, Ben, who lives in Ireland, and we actually started organising a website and everything for this idea of creating a community of people that shared a passion for Hecate. But the time wasn't right back then for it to do, so we kind of kept on stopping and starting and going, it's not quite right and stuff like that. But obviously what needed to happen was this ritual first, that kind of, but even just the ritual, like separate from, it's really touched me, just how amazing and how positive everybody's been. I've hardly had a negative reaction to it from anybody in comparison to how many people have been involved. There's been a couple of people that obviously, feel that it should have been done for a different goddess, or it was a dangerous thing to do, or, whatever. And everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but, on the whole, there's been thousands upon thousands of people that've done this ritual, that have got a lot from it personally, that shared it with other people, that have made new friends over it, that have learned new things, that have had new worlds open to them. and that's what it was supposed to be about. You know, it's not about me. It's not even about the book as much as it is just, you know, having this thing where people can actually get together and learn through their experiences by doing ritual, but also just through meeting people and sharing the experiences, because I think it's an incredibly important thing in, you know, the kind of modern kind of revivalist traditions. You know, we have to create our own communities. We're not born into our communities, our spiritual and religious communities. So I think it's an incredibly important role that this ritual's had. I mean, obviously at the time that I sat down and wrote it, I really didn't think that many people was ever going to do it. You know, and I have no idea what the reaction from people was going to be. And in fact, it took 3 friends and my husband David to convince me that I had not completely lost my mind and it was actually okay for me to give this ritual to everybody to do. But I think even then, the people that encouraged me through it, and, you know, I had a few very dark nights of the soul before I actually went ahead and posted it out. And a lot of that is actually due to Tara Sanchez, who actually drove I think it was 3 hours or something on Beltane morning, when I was completely going to chicken out of launching this ritual upon the world, to actually come and spend a very stormy Welsh day with me, recording it in my temple feng shui, which is in a large garden shed, in the middle of the storm, and people can hear fire on the film that's on YouTube, but actually it's the rain falling down.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah. Now, we just went over the 2 hours. It's okay, because this is actually not Blog Talk Radio. We can actually continue, and there's no interruption, so it's good. But I think that we have to go, because there's so many people, you know, and so many questions and things. We will certainly have you again, Sorita, and we love you very much, and we really think that your work with Hekate, and not only with Hekate, I mean Avalonian books, it's absolutely amazing. And, you know, this is a life commitment. I'm trying to be serious here. It's a life commitment that you and David did all over the years, and it's just so amazing, you know, sharing all of these books with us and all of these things. It's just so wonderful and fantastic. Now you can just tickle your little it's so cute. I love it. It's really cute. Yeah. No, it's a little bat. You have to explain to people what it is, because people don't know. Go ahead.
It's a little fluffy bat that was given this afternoon to my son by Adele, that runs this fabulous B&B in Glastonbury called the Covenstead, which is like a
oh, I know. It's fantastic.
And it, you know, so plug Adele for giving.
Yeah.
I don't know if my son is ever going to get the bat.
No, I just love that B&B. It's beautiful. So it has beautiful photographs. Yes. Yeah. So, did you went inside of the B&B? Did you see it?
Oh, I had a guided tour very late night a few weeks ago. Adele kind of kindly invited me back for drinks, and we had a few G&Ts, and let's just plug a little bit of publicity here. So, is it good? It's amazing. It officially opens. She's had some guests there, but it officially opens next year, and it is awesome. It's just amazing. I thought I wouldn't like it, because I tend to not like, you know, the kind of like commercial thingy. But it's kind of somehow the most classy thing ever. But it's kind of like, it's like a museum of witchcraft theme park B&B. It's awesome. There's this huge 4-poster bed with like this carvings of horned gods in it, and there's like a dark goddess room, and there's this room with a circular bed, this huge circular bed. It's like circular. It's like a circle, and it's got these bed sprays. It's all got big there's these covers for it. There's all got big pentagrams on it.
Wonderful! I just love it. I saw some photographs of it.
It's just done with so much taste. The women is so much taste.
I think it was the dining room that I saw with
Yeah,
this beautiful
dining room,
centerpiece
like,
and the chairs and it's just beautiful. I just love it. So it's called the Covenstead, right?
The Covenstead, yes.
So it's Covenstead. Okay. So Sorita, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you so much for doing this interview with us. And we will be back with you, I'm sure, with more things. We will be with David, actually, talking about one of his books. I'm not going to say what it is, but it's a surprise. But it's really, really wonderful, and I just wanted to thank you so much for, first of all of the work that you do, and second of all, for being here on Witchtalk again.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Carrigan. I love talking to you, and it's always a pleasure being on here because there's always different questions, and we can always go off in every single direction we want to, rather than,
of course,
than sitting and having a script, which doesn't always work very well. I think it's really nice to just have a proper conversation.
I know. What is Indigo is saying something? I don't know. What is she saying? Indigo, can you tell us what you're saying? Hold on. Wait until let me see. Hold on, because I'm not seeing what she's saying. Indigo Astray is trying to communicate with me, but I don't know what she's telling me. Okay, hold on. Yes. Okay. No, I know. I just wanted. She says, wait until the credits are gone. Yes, I know. No, I just wanted to say goodbye to Sorita first, and then and we'll see. Okay, so thank you so much, Sorita, for being here with us. Thank you so much for being here, and don't go anywhere. Just turn on off your video, because or not. It's okay if you want to know. It's fine. But I will be talking to you in a little bit.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you everybody for listening and having me here.
Thank you very much. So that's it. This is it. This is the end of Witchtalk. Now we will be back next week with more Witchtalk for you. Until then, I'll see you next week. Have a wonderful week. Bye.